This is NAI Global's Diving into Commercial Real Estate.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Diving into Commercial Real Estate podcast. I'm your host, Cliff Moskowitz, Executive Vice President of NAI Global. We have a great guest today, Paul Cohen. Paul is Crexi's National Director based in the firm's Miami office. Prior to joining Crexi, Cohen was a Managing Director specializing in investment sales and equity raises at Cohen Financial, a national debt and equity advisor. Prior to Cohen Financial, Paul owned and operated his own independent real estate firm following a 12-year tenure at CBRE, where Cohen was a senior vice president and led the private client group in Miami. He has represented numerous private owners with underwriting and developing marketing strategies and has close to $1 billion in total transaction value under his belt. Paul received his bachelor's in engineering in aeronautical engineering from the University of Hertfordshire, England.
Pretty good. Yeah, that's good. It's good enough.
Okay. Also, he's a licensed real estate broker, as you might expect. So, Paul, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Cliff, hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, looking forward. So, I guess first, most of our listeners probably know about Crexi, but for those who don't, or for those, maybe you can give us a little high level. What is Crexi?
Yeah, so high level, Crexi as a commercial real estate exchange, we launched about 5 years ago, although it's starting to blend into, I keep saying 5 years, it's probably more than that now. And the idea really was, like as you mentioned in the intro, I was a commercial broker. Our founder, Mike DiGiorgio, was instrumental to setting up auction.com's commercial platform, which later became 10X, and a few other guys that I sort of call it fate or chance or just complete luck or whatever it was, happened to meet those guys, even though they were situated across the country. I'm in Miami, they're in LA. And I left my brokerage business to join these guys just because I felt like something new was needed, right? And so 5 years ago, I'm sitting on my sofa and I'm ordering a pizza and it's showing up at my door. Yet at the same time, I'm trying to get an offering memorandum out of a broker, and it's taking me like 3 or 4 days. And I go, something has got to change. And I'm like emailing Mike, and he's like, well, we're going to change this and stuff. And 5 years ago, it was just an idea to bring commercial real estate into the 21st century. There's platforms that have been out there that I've used happily for years, but they didn't really take on the technology that, say, LinkedIn uses, which is a platform, Airbnb, Uber, Amazon, and the thing, we all use those, but we probably don't realize that they're platforms, meaning they're open, everybody gets to use them, and then it's the way that you interact and make it easy. Like there's a lot of other sites that you can buy retail on, but the reason why Amazon grew is because they just made it easy for people to buy, right? And so at Crexi, we just want to make it easy for people to get the information on their properties and move on. And so today we've got a site which, I'm sure there's people out there that would argue with this statement, but I'd say if you're looking to sell or lease your commercial real estate, we're the number one site for doing that. And just because it's open and everybody can use it, we have over 1 million users in the platform. All our NAI friends are using it, and we hear some great things from those guys. And that's it. And so we just really want to be the place where all the real estate comes to do business, and it can just essentially do all your business. Because one of the things that used to bother me was that I had to use 10 different sites to do one deal. Mm-hmm. There's some sites that are really good at doing like one thing, like making an offering memorandum, but then you got to send that out to the world. How do you do that? Then you got to use Constant Contact, and then you got to use this site and that site, and then you got to due diligence Vault. And we just brought all that into one place. So on Crexi, you can do your whole deal from lead generation all the way through to closing, all on Crexi. So that's essentially who we are and why we were born.
Got it. So it's essentially like a vertically integrated commercial real estate marketplace from soup to nuts.
I could have just said that, Cliff. That would have been a lot quicker. But yeah, I'll have you answer that question next time.
So as brokers, we're more deal focused,
Yeah.
certainly, but we're always hearing about all the technology. Certainly in the last few years, we know there's a lot of technology in the commercial real estate space out there.
Mm-hmm.
One of the terms that we hear a lot, even outside of commercial real estate with some of the sites you mentioned, LinkedIn, Amazon, et cetera, is this idea of data. And
Mm-hmm.
we hear data just thrown around in so many different ways. I don't know what that means. I mean, I know people tell me that everywhere I go, somebody's selling my data when I click on the site,
Mm-hmm.
this and that. But maybe you could just help us understand a little bit, what is big data?
Yeah, I mean, so you're right. It is a term that's thrown around a lot. There's a great documentary. It's on Amazon actually, so it's kind of weird, but it's called The Creepy Line, and it's really about the bad side of people getting access to your data. And really, all big data means is collecting all the data we get, right? It's every piece of information you have is out there collected, and it really sort of, I think the term came to it was coined in about the early 90s, but it didn't really become a thing until cloud computing launched, really sort of became available to everybody in sort of the early 2000s. And what basically happens is, anywhere from like the NSA to Google to Target to everyone, they're collecting all this data, but big data is really about what they do with that data. It's the analytics and the insights they get from it. And I heard a story the other day about I think it was a father in Minneapolis and his daughter's at high school, and she gets this coupon from Target for baby clothes and cribs, and he's obviously he's obviously outraged. He goes down to Target, it's like, I want to speak to the manager. And turns out what happened was, because she goes to the store and she buys certain things, this data triggers algorithms, and it says, okay, this person is pregnant based upon the things that she just bought. And apparently, about a week or so later, the dad comes, calls up, and says, yes, you know what, you're my bad. My daughter was actually pregnant. And
Okay.
that's how it was. So at Crexi, we can't tell you if you're going to be pregnant or not, but we what we do is we use the data to help you make better decisions. And we all know, how do I put this? Over the years, we've used sites that gave us numbers. I know of some pretty decent sized institutions that have used data to make decisions on purchasing without consulting the local brokers, to their detriment, right? And so, there's data, there's charts, there's graphs. This is the vacancy rate. This is the occupancy rate. This is this, how accurate really is it? And so at Crexi, we want to take that data and really kind of partner with the brokers, because our big bet is that the brokers are still needed at the street level to make sense of the data. I just don't think. I mean, anyone that's used Zillow, for example, it's like a broken clock, right? It's right twice a day, and sometimes it is right, but sometimes it's just not. And so at the end of the day, you would need a realtor to kind of help you that knows that market, and that's kind of how we see big data. Yeah, it's really useful. We collect it, but it's how we use it is really, I think, the game changer that we're about to launch on the market.
So, well, I guess then that begs the question, how does
Mm.
it apply to commercial real estate? And, where
Yeah,
would be the biggest impact, I guess, now
yeah,
and, what's coming in the future?
yeah. It's a great question. I mean, so there's different areas of the industry. One is just the basic, let's call it comp data, right? Um, there's different ways of getting it, and what we believe in, it's the way that the economy is moving. It's called the sharing economy, right? People are happy to share their stuff, including their data, as long as one thing is held true, which is fairness. So if you treat people fairly, and this is doubly true of the commercial brokerage community, who, in my opinion, are a group of people who want to share their information. They just don't want to be taken advantage of. And so at Crexi, what we believe is, if you share your data with us, you will, benefit from that two ways. One is you'll get really good data back that you can use, and also it will increase your reputation within the system, meaning the person in Cincinnati that does all the office deals will be recognized as the market expert in office. That's just how it should be. It may not be. It probably will be Larry Bergman, but maybe it won't. But so that's kind of how we see it. And then it's sort of helping brokers and buyers make decisions with analytics. Data, market reports that I used to sort of attend at the local whatever NAOP meeting and stuff like that tend to be very sort of sub-market generated. Like in this sub-market, office space is doing this. And the problem with that is, sub-markets are essentially garbage, right? Because I mean, you're just averaging out a geographic area that hopefully has properties that are somewhat similar. But the reality is buyers don't need that. They need information on specific kind of areas that make sense to them. And so that's what I see the future, being able to create your own market space, your own boundaries, if you know what I mean. So I want to do an analysis of industrial in this area, this polygon that I've just generated, and it will give me a heat map and a report that I can help to find gaps in the market of where I can find land at a reasonable price, given the rental rate and the construction costs. Should I build here? And there's no data out there that can help you do that today. But at Crexi, I'd say within 2021, you'll be able to do all that kind of stuff.
Wow, that would be, certainly a game changer, because I know now we're going to a lot of different sources to package all that information together in different or investment pieces. So.
It's and then you got to dump it all into Excel spreadsheets and then do analysis, and you got to hire some MBA to help you do it. You'll be able to do it on Crexi. I mean, the other thing is buyers. I mean, rating buyers. That's something you see in restaurants and you see it in all sorts of industries. But if you could go, and you can do this right now, you can go into your dashboard in Crexi, which most NAI brokers, agents have an account on Crexi and listings. They can go in there today and see all their leads, all the people that have looked at their deal, and it will give you a score next to them. And it will say this person has a 3.2 score. These are out of 5. And so they can call that person. If somebody has a 1.9, maybe they don't need to call them today. That is those sorts of things are just game changers for the industry, in my opinion, because it's helping you hone in on who is the right buyer for that property. And at Crexi, I think we're the only site that uses algorithms to determine who buyers are, right? So imagine this. So you got like a million plus people coming into Crexi, clicking on different types of listings. The system can say, okay, this person is interested in self-storage facilities in the Midwest. And then if you uploaded a self-storage facility in the Midwest, it would send it directly to that person. The way that the world worked before that is that person would have to log into the site, search through all the self-storage, find that specific deal, contact the broker. Broker would have to call you back and then do the deal, which is not the end of the world, but that's how it was. Today on Crexi, that buyer gets the information on that property that they're extremely interested in, and you can do a deal that much quicker. And that's, to me, the big difference between Crexi and how we use the big data to get deals done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen. On my Crexi account, I have noticed they have those ratings. It's very interesting. For the record, me and my team, we still call all the potential buyers. We don't rely on the rating, but
thank you for saying that, Cliff. Thank you for saying that, Cliff, because I do get into opinionated debates with brokers, because I still get these brokers are like, well, if somebody's interested, well, shouldn't they just call me? And I'm like, I mean, maybe, but if I'm a guy with $5 million to spend, am I going to call every deal? Or if the broker that calls me and sells the deal to me, is that the one I end up buying? That was always my experience. That's why sellers hire you to market their properties, right? Because you're going to call the buyer and actually sell the deal. If you're just going to wait for the buyer to make an offer, you're asking for a lot, in my opinion.
Well, and that begs the question, and this is one that comes up a lot as all the different technology comes out. The brokers there's always this discussion for years now. Basically, are these technologies going to replace the role of the broker? And I think, in residential, in some cases, it's definitely having an impact. I don't know if it's totally replacing the broker. I know fees are, compressing, and, that's starting to seep into commercial as well. So, do you see Crexi as a replacement for the broker, or maybe not even just Crexi, but some of these technologies that are out there now as a replacement, or where do you see the future of brokerage?
Yeah, I mean, look, that is the question, right? I got into the business in 1992, and I remember going to realtor board meetings and somebody plugging in a VHS video and the future of commercial real estate is here, and it's like the broker will be replaced, and I'm like, wow, oh my God, and I was like panicking about it. Should I change industries? Well, 30 years later, guess what? Brokers are still going strong. And at Crexi, our big gamble is that brokers are needed to do deals. They need to look at buildings. Zillow is one thing. When you have homogeneous properties and subdivisions and stuff, you could probably make a decent inference that something is worth that. But in commercial, if you're at an intersection, the four corners are worth vastly different amounts of money. And it's very hard for a computer to kind of figure that out. You need and so what we think is the technology will enhance the broker, right? We see Crexi as a broker enhancement tool, but you can't enhance something that's not, enhanceable, if that's even a word. You know what I mean? You can't. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, and at NAI you don't have this issue, but in the commercial real estate space in general, there are just the people who want to be able to do a search on a site, find 10 listings, email it to the buyer and say, hey, buy one of these, let me know when you're ready. That person is probably going to be out of business. But the broker who can hold your hand, can show you, can do an analysis of properties, complex analysis of what properties are worth. And in my market, Miami, there's not a bunch of brokers that could tell you what it would cost to build a 20-story apartment building on a site. They just think it's $100 a foot. You know what I mean? And so they're not that much value to a property owner who's got, 5 acres of land with an office building on it. What is its highest and best use? They probably couldn't figure that out. So brokers that know the market, have analytical skills, and also have marketing and negotiation skills, like we talked about before. If you're not going to call all your prospects and try and sell them, you're not doing a great job for your seller. And so those brokers will flourish in the new world, in the Crexi world. We're building a site for those people. But some brokers, yeah, they'll probably have to go do something else, because what value are they really providing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would just add to that, the way I view Crexi and some of the other technologies out there is, as a broker for myself, like I started as an office leasing broker in New York City in the Garment District. Very small area, very small focus, doing one thing. But what these technologies have enabled me to do is to take my business anywhere, and I can
Right.
understand, maybe not as much as the local, and we always team with our local offices, but I can have a pretty good idea of what's going on in St. Louis, in an area, even if I'm not in St. Louis all the time. And I can be working on deals in multiple states across the country, multiple property types, and really just being more adaptable to the business that comes my way, rather than just doing tenant rep office leasing in the Garment Center in New York City, which is where I started. I think that's definitely been an advantage.
Yeah, and that's a trend that's just been happening across the board. People are not anchored to one place. I was at a dinner last night for some special services that we work with at Crexi, and that's what they all shared. They were Manhattan-based people who didn't wander out of the city except for maybe a couple of times a year for vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're like, spending a month in Florida and another 2 weeks in Cape Cod, and they're just like, wow, my life has changed. And it's become more acceptable to let people know that. There was a guy at Seabeer Shallis who I'm not going to mention, but for years, for the last 20 years, he'd jump on his sailboat with his family and he'd spend a month in the Caribbean, but in the Bahamas. But he would never let any. I was maybe one of the few people that knew, and he'd be, I don't want anyone to know that I do this. Now it's like everyone's going to do this, and so I think from that standpoint, working remotely and having the ability to parachute in and do deals in other markets because you have the data at your fingertips is, I think, it's great. I think it's great for the industry.
For sure. So not all of us are going to be replaced based on
Not you,
your.
not you, Cliff. You're good. You're good.
So how can we utilize the technology, the big data, and some of the other terms that we talked about to make us more productive as brokers, speed up the sales cycle so we can make more deals?
I mean, I think it's. Just to be clear, nobody at NAI is getting replaced. I'm talking about like people at residential type folks that sort of stumble across deals. Those are the people that I'm talking about. But I think first of all, the speed of deals will accelerate because of this integrated platform. There's no reason that it should take so long to get a property to market. At a former firm that I was at, I mean, I'm thinking it would take us almost 3 weeks before we had all the marketing materials done, the sign on the property, an email ready to go out. I mean, it's 3 weeks of that should happen. You should be able to do that in a day. There's no reason it should take 3 weeks. And so speed to market, I think, is the first thing that will change. Finding the buyer. In Crexi, you'll be able to, and to some extent, you can already do that right now. When you upload a deal, say, here's 5 people that would be interested in this property, give them a call. That is, so finding the buyer. Then the next stage is getting the thing under contract. Attorneys take a lot of time. There will be a streamlined process for that. I'm pretty confident of that within the next 5 years. And then there's the closing. Why does it take all this time to do reports? Appraisal reports, environmental reports, engineering reports. These should all take a few days. They shouldn't take 3 or 4 weeks. So just accelerating the whole process, I think, is where we're headed in the industry.
Yeah, and I think that's why myself and a lot of the NAI professionals are so excited about working with Crexi. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit of, how is that relationship going? Maybe some statistics on it.
It's great. I mean, we have, just across the board of just commercial brokers in general, I hear so much good feedback from brokers. It gets, I won't say it's embarrassing, but just like, when we go to conferences and stuff and people just come up to us and say, hey, thanks, it's gratifying. NAI is one of our best partners for sure. I think something like, I just checked, I think we have something like 25,000 listings on Crexi from NAI professionals. We have about 2,500 brokers. I think pretty much all the firms are on Crexi. There might be 1 or 2 holdouts or, just maybe not the early adopters, but all the major firms are on us. But the important thing is not that you have your listings on Crexi, which is good. The important thing to us is that you're doing deals. So since you guys have been on Crexi, we've brought in over 500 offers on properties. You average about 25 leads per listing, which I think is pretty amazing, and almost close to 1,000 properties have closed since day one. And that's really at Crexi how we measure our success. It's not how many listings we have; it's how many brokers are doing deals on the platform. And I've had brokers tell me that 80% of their revenue, 80% of their income, comes from Crexi. And that's amazing considering 5 years ago we were sitting in a restaurant having breakfast with Mike going, what should we do with this? How should we build this thing? And to think that today brokers are bringing in 80% of their revenue because of us is pretty awesome.
That's great. So before we part, we're sort of
That's it. We're almost done. I was having so much fun. I thought we were just
I
warming up,
know
Cliff.
I don't want to keep you for too long,
Okay.
but we're in strange times for sure. I mean, transaction volume, this year in 2020 is certainly down,
Mm.
mostly across the board. Maybe industrial still pretty good, although based on the call this morning that we had with some of our industrial folks, seems like it might be slowing a little bit. And obviously, brokers make money on transactions.
Right.
So just maybe a little thoughts on where you see the business going and what's going to happen, some predictions over the next you know short term and maybe medium to long term.
Yeah, I mean, so real estate predictions are tough. As you know, I'm not a broker anymore. We have a pretty good data team that sort of tracks stuff, and everything's moving up until the right. So March, April was a little bit of a weird time for everybody as we were trying to figure out what was going to happen. But once we realized what the new normal was, I look at the data on Crexi and leads, offers, all the KPIs that we look at are moving up at a pretty good rate.
That's good.
And product types, I mean, industrial, like you said, that was good. Large tracts of land around major cities like Charlotte, Salt Lake, and all these types of major cities across the U.S. If you've got like 100 acres, a home builder's probably going to buy it from you. So stick it up on Crexi because they all use Crexi to find deals. We just sold, oh man, I think we sold something like 35 to 40 million dollars worth of land around Las Vegas in the last few months. So land is doing well, and then hotels. Hotels are moving. And hotels are interesting just
Really,
because of,
that's it. That's interesting.
yeah, what the brokers that do that are telling us, because it's a good opportunity to go in, and they're not really getting them at a discount. They're just, unlodging a seller that was probably kind of stubborn, and they were just managing to get it at a decent price. The seller's like, well, I'll get rid of this now. I don't know if I want to hold on to this much longer. And they can use a site like Crexi because hotels are tricky to sell. You don't want to throw them up on other sites where, hotel owners are a little bit funny about marketing their properties for sale. So within Crexi, there's a way that you can kind of do that without sort of tipping off a traveler that the hotel they're staying in is about to sell. So that's kind of what's going on as far as the real estate market. And as far as just other kind of what I see in the future, I think the virtual tours. I met Jay at the Houston. When was the Houston conference? Was that in January or
That
something?
was early
End of
March.
June.
That was the
Oh,
week before
was it
everything.
really in March? Oh,
Yes,
okay.
happening.
It was the week before. Yeah, and Jay, I think I've already used this joke before, but Jay, like, I went up to shake his hand and he gave me his elbow, and I thought the guy was insane. But and then I realized what was really about to happen. But what it's done is it's accelerated things that I think were already going to happen. And I think this Zoom calls and Zoom meetings, people are a little bit weird about, especially with their cameras. Now everybody does it. Every meeting we have, I can speak to someone across the country, and it's just like you're there talking to them. And I think that's going to be the new way of doing stuff. And it's weird because we did I think one of the first webinars we did in sort of March when we couldn't travel anymore was in Portland, Oregon. No, sorry, it was in Portland, Maine. And some of the brokers that were on the call had been in that market their whole careers and had not met other brokers. Like, they've done deals with them, they just hadn't met them. And I was like, how is that even possible? But they met through Crexi. And so I think like virtual tours, virtual meetings, people are not going to feel like they have to jump on a plane to go. I'm a big people person, but I think a lot more stuff will be done over virtually. I think offering memorandums are a thing of the past. Talking about that sort of speed to market and speed to close, I think offering memorandums are one of those things that just take so much time, and we have a pretty good solution that we're going to be launching on that. I don't know. I mean, I think people talk about blockchain a lot. I don't know that blockchain is going to change. If you're sort of 55, 60 years old is the average, commercial real estate broker is today. I don't think blockchain is going to, or cryptocurrency will change your careers that much. But if you're younger, then definitely keep your eye on that. I mean, I think the first step on blockchain will be, sales contracts, insurance policies, that kind of stuff. Leases. They don't need to be these paper documents that get ferried back and forth. They can live there, and you can just click accept. I think that will be a thing. And there's probably other things. I mean, I'm in Miami. We're in a WeWork right now.
Mhm.
I'm the only one here. I'm going to change the name to iWork. Sorry, I've used that joke before, but there's just literally nobody here. I mean, it's a ghost town. So I don't know that the co-working space will bounce back. But I do think that with technology, people will be able to use their surplus space. So if you've got 5,000 square feet and you've got an extra 1,000 you're not using, you'll be able to kind of find people for that 1,000 square feet, even on a temporary basis. And that I think is already happening. So
Definitely, just the ability to be more flexible, not having necessarily the long-term lease contract. That might
right,
be a future for sure.
for sure.
All right, Paul. Well, we really appreciate it. I definitely learned a lot today about data, and I have a lot to think about actually in my own business and if I'm being efficient as I put together an OM today
Yeah,
after this call. Yeah, we really appreciate it. We hope to have you back. If anybody has any questions about Crexi, what would be the best way for? Is it just go to the website and follow the links? Or what would be the
well,
best?
probably yes. But anytime you want to call, email me. I mean, I probably know most of your brokers. I've met with them. But it's paul@crexi.com. Just shoot me an email. But if you go onto the site, click a button, somebody will call you. I'd rather you call me, just so we can have a conversation about what it is you're looking to do. So that's paul@crexi.com. But any button you click on Crexi, someone's going to call you within probably about 10 minutes. So
Perfect.
if you
I've
don't
been
want someone to call you, just be careful. Just be careful of
I
clicking
know,
on stuff.
I know you have the Crexi bot too that comes up when I'm on the site. But ask me if I need any help, right?
Yeah. We have the bot, and there's a team that monitors it. So if somebody needs to speak to someone, then they pick up right away. But yeah, as you can imagine, we're big fans of technology. So
Yeah.
we employ all the different tech to help us be more efficient, because if we have to hire 5,000 people, let's say, to run Crexi, it's going to be an expensive product. The reality is we're a team of about 150, and we can afford to give your members a great price and a fair price to conduct their business. So that's what it's all about.
That's great. All right, thanks, Paul. Maybe next year in 2021 we can talk again and have a little catch up, see what's going on then.
Absolutely. I'll put it in my calendar right now.
All right, perfect.
Awesome. Thanks, Cliff.